Hello team and welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan M.S. Pearce. This is a live stream where we are going to be formally starting a campaign that we actually started, goodness me, was it yesterday, I think, or the day before? I don't even know now. Days, it's all so crazy, so much is happening. And I'm really pleased. I think I'm pleased. I have no frame of reference really as to how well you guys have done in fundraising for this brilliant campaign that Iryna from DZYGA'S, and I say from, she's a founder. She runs it with her husband, although her husband, as she would tell us, is now serving the Ukrainian armed forces in the unmanned systems forces. Dimko, I interviewed him a couple of weeks ago, and many of you guys will have watched that. But now Iryna is coming on to talk about the campaign that we are doing together with DZYGA'S, to explain who DZYGA'S are and the work they do and what this campaign will do. But also we'll have a chat about what's going on in Ukraine, because just in case any of you were in any doubt, it's all mental. Everything in the world is mental. And the world is going to hell in a handcart, and it appears that every time I look to Ukraine, they're the only people that are being sensible. So anyway, that's enough of me. Iryna, thank you so much for coming on.
Yes, thanks, Jonathan. Thank you for inviting me over. And I was happy to meet you in person just a couple of weeks ago, maybe. So now I'm happy to talk to you again and have this chat. I watched your stream with Dimka. Actually, it was pretty cool. I enjoyed it. You discussing, especially the transparency page. It was like a user interview for me. You know, you looking through that page live. So yeah, thank you very much for inviting. Hello, everyone who's watching us now live or will watch later. I'm Iryna. Currently, I lead DZYGA'S Charity Foundation, which is a Ukrainian charity, like Ukrainian nonprofit, because every time I call it charity, I feel messed up because it's not like a classic charity. We are based in Lviv, which is a Ukrainian city in the west of Ukraine. And what we do is we help Ukrainian defenders with technological equipment and like global crowdfunding efforts. So we do a lot of fundraising online, on Twitter, on Instagram, other social media, and we have our group of supporters who are supporting us on a regular basis. So we're really grateful to all of them. And we started this as a like personal initiative just to help our friends, and now it developed into a bigger organization, which is like working on a scale of like $100,000 per month or more or less sometimes. And the main thing we deliver is basically drones. We just did our annual report, and it was like 50%, more than 50% of our budget. And now we have another drone fundraiser, which ATP, the whole ATP team were awesome to join, and they are raising their part. We didn't even announce it like on a live stream, whatever. Jonathan just said this is the official launch, and look how much did you already raise?
Yeah, it's fantastic, because I just mentioned it at the end of one of my normal videos and how to donate. And by the way, when you do donate, please make sure that when you press on there that you copy ATP for Dryad and put it in the comment. I imagining we're probably above 4,200, but some of that probably would have gone into a general pot because people won't have done that. I know human nature, but make sure please that you copy the ATP for Triad comment, and then when you put it in whatever payment that you put that in the reference or the payment comments, and that will really help out. Sorry, you carry on.
Yeah. I just want to mention that too. We unfortunately we do not have classical fundraising stuff like donor box or like personalized PayPal link, because we are located in Ukraine, and none of the payment systems or businesses work in here. Basically, we do not have access to like organizational version of PayPal. We do not have access to Donorbox or to Stripe or whatever is the like payment system used mostly in Europe. So that's why we are trying to use some kind of proxies to make sure your donations came from like your channel. That's why it's very important. I'm begging you, please include ATP for Triad when you're donating, so that we know how many donations came through from Jonathan and his great audience and his team.
Absolutely, and you guys are absolutely magnificent. We've shown, you've shown that, not we. You've shown that when we've raised for NAFO, for Car for Ukraine, with Greg Terry for the Medivacs. You've been absolutely amazing, and it is a challenge, I think, for, and maybe Iryna has something to say about this. That 3 years into the war, there will be war weariness. You know, and we're not talking about the people, you know, people fighting on the front lines can't be weary. There's no weariness there. You know, they can't afford that. They're fighting for their lives. But in a sense, the war becomes normalized. We lose focus. We get interested in other things. I'm amazed that so many of you are here after 3 years of me saying the same kind of stuff every day, literally every day for 3. I haven't had a day off for something like, even Christmas Day, I'm doing videos for something like 2.5 to 3 years. I haven't had a day off. So like, I'm amazed that you guys are here with me, but it's a challenge to keep generating that enthusiasm and that will to financially support when not everyone is going to be in that position. So I'm wondering, Iryna, have you noticed that do you struggle to get donations in a way that you would have done some years ago?
Yes, I would say so. So we still, like, we managed to get an increase in donations, but it was very little, like, compared to 2023. In 2024, but still, what I feel like is like the effort needed to get to people, to talk to them, to break through all the, you know, X algorithms. And it used to be our main platform basically for communications, and now, like, to retain people who donated already and to get the new audience is harder and harder. And that's what my team says. All of them are like putting way more effort, and we are trying to get, like, to involve more volunteers to help us just to be able to break through basically all of the stuff we have to, because people get less involved, people have their own stuff to do, and unless we have a big something big happening, some big, like, informational thing, like now in the news, like Ukraine is all over the news because of Trump statements and stuff, then people are getting interested in that again, and we are here for them. So we receive a lot of donations, especially from the US, saying, well, I'm not like my government. Please do not, accept their statements for granted, because we do not think like that, and most of the Americans support Ukraine. And so there is a trigger. If there is a trigger somewhere, people would go and, like, show their appreciation and donate and support and share and stuff like that. But most of the times, like, Ukraine is not in the news as it used to be anymore, even though a lot of things are happening on the front lines. And even though we do a lot of, like, interesting projects, whenever we try to pitch to some media, they're like, sorry, we do not have space for that anymore. I'm sorry, I cannot push it to my editor, and so on and so forth. So yeah, it gets way more effort to do it than it was, and it's natural. So thank you everyone who is still here and still with us, still supporting. It means a lot.
Absolutely, and indeed, thank you. So that's so Jigger's Paw as a charity, called Jigger's Paw after Jigger meaning a spinning top, because their dog Jigger as a puppy used to chase its tail and look like a spinning top, which I think is a lovely name. But this triad project isn't just myself. We are part of a larger drive to, what are we fundraising for exactly, and where are these going to go, and how are they going to be used?
Yes, so I'll give you a brief about that. We just announced it on our, like, annual report just 2 weeks ago, maybe even less. It's a fundraiser for, like, it was designed as one for 3 years anniversary, or how you call it, of the full-scale invasion. And the symbolism behind is that, well, the war is going on for 11 years now, but 3 years, it's a massive, like, full-scale operation. And what changed between, like, 2014 invasion and now is that the size of the front line is way larger than it was, like, back in 2014's invasion. So now we basically have three major directions of the front. First is now like Sumy region and Kharkiv, so it's like the upper part of the map when it wasn't like there wasn't combat action since 2014 at all. It just all started back in 2022. Now we have east, which is Donetsk region, Luhansk region, but also we have Zaporizhia and Kherson, which is also like a new part which was introduced with the full-scale invasion of Russian Federation. So we are supporting units located all over the front line, from the top to the bottom. And we have 7 different units we are trying to support, and we would like to show how united we are in supporting them. And this time the request is for 9th Division drones. So we are raising $300,000. And this is only 90 drones, unfortunately, because they are very expensive for 7 different units of the Ukrainian armed forces. We can go through like all of the units, and I can talk more on every of them if you'd like.
No, I mean, the units should be fine. And well, one question, will our drones just go into a pot, or will our drones go to a particular unit? And am I right in saying they have something carved on the top of them? Is that right? Because that'd be pretty cool.
Yes.
I'm not gonna lie, Iryna. I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, we have this ongoing thing. So whenever a person covers or a group of people cover one full drone, and you're going to cover even more than one because you already raised for more than one, we engrave whatever they want on the drone. We have our partners in Lviv who do laser engraving for us, so it's not just signing in with a permanent marker. It will be really permanent, and we can engrave like ATP Geopolitics. We can engrave names of your donors, whatever you want on that, as many drones as you will cover.
I'm so excited about that. And I guess we could say something like, if anyone donates over like $1,000, I know that's a ridiculously high amount of money, but if anyone has got the wherewithal to be able to donate something like that, your name will be engraved on that drone. So on the drone. So is that all right to say something like that?
We can do, so one drone is 3,300, so 3.3. So, but there is much space, so we can do like joint teams. Yeah, I think I saw like, because I was checking your chart, and I think there were people who donated more than 1,000 for your.
I can see 2 people have done 1,000. So I'll be happy to, if you have their names, to have their names on a drone. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, let's do that. We can then, like, upon finishing, we will contact them, maybe even create a group. Like, we contact them, ask if they are fine, to engrave their names and then share it. That'd be awesome. Maybe typically, so for this particular project, we are planning to actually do some like gathering, and to at least try to grab some of the people from the units to come either to Kyiv or Dnipro, and to meet like everyone in one place and do this kind of transfer. So maybe if you are in Ukraine by that time, it will be somewhere in spring, probably beginning of April, but we will see how it goes with the drones, because we might have issues with supplies because of China and because of the political situation. But our plan, as of now, is to do this transfer and to get people who donated or who help us fundraise some significant amount, and get their recipients from the military units, and to meet and greet, and be able to talk to them, because I feel like personal connections do a lot. It's a great thing to do. So we will try to do it.
You've offered me to come out there and be a part of that as well, which I'd absolutely love to. I've been offered, there are other things as well, like Car for Ukraine are doing another one. And I have a feeling that if I didn't have a family, I would just be just hanging out around Ukraine the whole time, just like doing like drone handovers and stuff, and I'd be made up. But family gets in the way, goodness me. But they don't really. Sorry, family, you don't get in the way. You're lovely. I love you all. But yeah, so that's really cool. And it would be great. Like one of my taglines is fighting for truth and freedom, or freedom and truth, which is like what I think is really important. That you guys are fighting for freedom, but also I find it really important to be fighting disinformation, to be fighting for accuracy and honesty when reporting on the war, even if it's uncomfortable things for the Ukrainians. It's important that we are realistic about what's going on and that we're not lying to ourselves. As Richard Feynman, the physicist, once said, the easiest person to fool is yourself. And you know, that's what we've got to be careful of. But yeah, so that's absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. And the Vilden card failed, so donate via Jonathan. Love to Iryna. Thank you very much for that. I will pass that on. What I will say though, if possible, please donate directly to Jiggers Poor, because otherwise people like YouTube take cuts and all that kind of stuff. So please, I know you've done that because it's sometimes cards fail with like Monobank and getting to Ukraine. It's very normal for that to happen. It's just because it's a Ukrainian banking system and international banks don't always like it, but it's not because it's dodgy or anything like that. It's just is consistently an issue for charities in Ukraine. But if failing that, do it directly to my PayPal is probably the easiest thing, and then I'll pass that on to the charity, which I've already done once. So thank you for that, by the way. That's really, really kind. So what's interesting is these are thermal. No, are they thermal imaging or night vision optics? So they're thermal.
Thermal, yeah, thermal vision camera. Yeah.
So how will these drones be used then?
So the main use case, if you could guess, is using them at night just for reconnaissance missions, just to support infantry or support some night drones, like night bomber drones, to be able to film what they are doing, what they are damaging. But now it's cold and the day is pretty short because it's winter. So what I heard talking to the units during our last frontline trip was that they're actually using these drones during the day too, because like during winter and beginning of spring, it's hard to spot the infantry, and the difference in temperatures between a human and the land is significant. So basically, whenever like enemy infantry is going onto an assault operation, they would be masking pretty good, some wearing some clothing which will not make them visible, or just hiding in a forest, for example. So it's very hard to see them, even during the day. And when you're using a classic, Mavic 3 drone, Mavic 3 Pro, whatever, with just like day camera, you won't be able to spot them easily. But whenever you use thermal camera, even during the day, it highlights humans pretty well, because humans are warm, unfortunately. Well, if we can call Russians humans, I'm not sure about that. So yeah, I heard from like maybe 3 out of 5 units we met that they actually using the drones during the day too, and most of the usages are during the day. So it's a drone that is being used for like mission support, for reconnaissance, and for supporting bomber drones or FPV drones, because you need to have a film of how you destroyed your enemy. You need to have like a video confirmation of the destroyed stuff. And it also used for artillery correction. So we have a couple of like units we work with who have their own artillery, and they will need to fly out with Mavic to be able to see how close they are to the target, and they are able to reach it in like 3 to 5 shots.
So that's I mean, it's all really important. Drones are, I think the latest stats that have come out have suggested that drones are responsible now for 60% of the casualties certainly on the Russian side, which is a marked change from the beginning of the war, when artillery, in a traditional sense, was the god of war and was responsible for something like 80% of casualties, and including deaths and wounded on the front line. 80% was artillery. Now you've got 60% drones, and so drones really have been, and it's been a necessity for Ukraine that they've been lacking in artillery shells and to some degree artillery pieces. So they've had to find a way around that. So drones have come to, particularly first-person view drones and the drones that drop bombs and whatnot, have somewhat replaced artillery, substituted for artillery because they've been lacking there. So and then of course they develop in a way that they become even better than artillery in certain aspects. So and you can argue about the comparative advantages of artillery against drones and whatnot. It also appears that drones, I know that Magyar's birds, he's released some stats saying that, I think was he saying that his drones, or was it the fiber optic drones, are 80% successful? So that's really good as well. Have you had anything to do with fiber optic drones at all?
So we are starting to explore this direction now, basically based on our, again, latest trip to the front line. What I heard from especially guys who are working in Kursk, it's extremely electronic warfare heavy environment, and they are not able to use their ordinary analog FPV drones. So they're trying to look for new solutions. One of which is digital FPVs, so which is harder to like jam, basically, because it's not analog, and electronic warfare wouldn't do it as easily. But another thing, but it's expensive. So for this solution, you will have to pay maybe twice, maybe even 3 times more than for a classic FPV, analog FPV drone. And for kamikaze use case, when you just like, it's one way, it's too expensive. Well, compared to the loss it could cause, not that expensive, but in our reality, when we have very limited resources, it's too expensive for them. So fiber optics seems to be more legit in this case, because it's cheaper than a digital system, and it's still harder to jam, and it is very maneuverable. So another, unobvious advantage of this thing is basically that if you have, like, the only thing you need to have is a very good pilot. And if you have a very good pilot, you can fly into like an underground shelter, like a ceiling or whatever, and you will not lose connection with your antenna, because you don't need antenna and you don't need transmission via air, because you're connected via this fiber optic sync cable wire. So it's basically very cool, and the guys are starting to implement it and to use it. We have 2 units who used it and who tried it, one in Kursk and one in Kharkiv direction. And in Kharkiv it worked also like very well for them because of the landscape, because it's all very, the Donbass is mostly like, there are more regions where it's flat, but up there it's like there are a lot of hills and stuff, so it works very good with wires, and because they do not lose the connection. And another 2 units asked me if I can provide them with these drones, because they want to try to test them and they don't have them yet. So I was just researching Ukrainian producers of such drones, and I found a couple of them. And now I'm considering, because sometimes the price difference is huge. I'm trying to understand why is it like that.
What do you mean the price difference is huge? Between what and what?
Between 2 Ukrainian manufacturers of an FPV on a fiber optic.
Right.
Same
thing, but 2 just massively. Right. Okay.
Yeah. Same 10-inch drone, same 10-kilometer wire, but there is a difference. So yeah, maybe like in terms of motors, in terms of electronics, something is different over there. So I'm just gathering feedback from people who really used it, trying to understand if it's worth investing. Well, it's not huge. It's like a couple thousand hryvnias, so like $50, $100. But on scale, it's like when you buy 100 drones, it definitely makes sense. So I'm trying to understand if it's useful or not, and then we will be buying them for one of the unmanned systems units, by the way.
Yeah, interesting. And I just to let people know, first of all, on their website there is a big thing on transparency. And by the way, Lynn Aldrich here saying my card failed on DZYGA'S due to the credit card not wanting to do credit card in Ukraine, but using PayPal. Remember, PayPal is just a payment system, so you can use your credit card. So rather than doing it directly to like a Ukrainian bank or whatever, you can do it through PayPal, and it's still your credit card. You can choose whatever payment method through PayPal. You don't have to necessarily have like money in a PayPal like account, if you like. So just for those who have never used PayPal before, so that the PayPal definitely works, and I can tell you because I've just put that payment through. I've literally, as Iryna was talking, I've already put that through, so it definitely works. But anyway, talking about transparency, if we go to the transparency page, you can see what's been done. And this is just from January the 1st to January the 31st here. I mean, you can set this for all different sorts of timescales. So we're at what, where we're with 22nd today. So just this year, this is what the guys at DZYGA'S have done, and you can see what they've raised, what it's been spent on, where it's gone, or you know, hero, parcels count, total value. What's this part here?
So it says the hero, because like when we started, we were building it on personal stories basically, and we have our heroes representing the unit, and these are all different people from different units, and it shows on the level of a unit how many did we get to them. It's fun that Demko is the first here.
Yeah,
we gave him 2 cars, and cars are expensive, so there were 2 parcels. One was 2 cars, which was over 10K, and another one, I think, with laptops to his unit, basically. But it's fun to see. Yeah, and yeah, and so here you can see the unit, the hero, and you see what is the number of shipments we made or the transfers we made, and what's the total amount of the equipment we gave to them. Because people sometimes would like to support a particular unit, so this is a way for them to see and follow if we are like working with this unit, if we are supporting them still or not.
Brilliant. Fantastic. And just to let you guys know as well, I have visited the house where these guys do their work out of, and it was an absolute privilege. And just to let you know, I don't even remember one of the guys with me, big fella called Mark. Here, he's called the Little Whiskey Shop. He says, "Hi everyone, hi Iryna, great to see you again." So he was out with us in the house. So Mark is in the live chat, so saying hello to you. Oh. So and JR's in the background as well, and you just spoke to him before. He's helping out with the questions and whatnot. So you know the team that I was out in Lviv with are here involved, and it's fantastic. And we visited DZYGA'S, and it is a fantastic and very transparent organization. All of the people that work there seem to me incredibly committed and lovely people. We had a bit of an interview with Iryna, which still hasn't gone up yet. Jonathan Fink hasn't quite put that all together, but I might just take the raw footage and whack it up myself as we sat and had a chat to Iryna in one of the rooms there. But it was absolutely fabulous. And I even right here, I haven't put them up behind me. I think one of them's up there, but I've got some DZYGA'S patches here. I've got the silicon one and the English language one, which is material one. So yay, DZYGA'S. So just to let you know, they are transparent. They're a fantastic organization, but also, as you can see from this image, they deliver things, and Iryna's mentioned that, you know, vehicles, talks about drones, but it's also a lot about components to drones. And I wonder if, Iryna, you can talk about that in a second. So it's not always that units need drones, but they get these drones and then are like, actually, it's missing this, or it needs that something changed here. So Iryna can talk to that. But you got Starlinks, controversial, power, electronic warfare. We saw a bunch of electronic warfare stuff when we were there. Vehicles, radios, general hardware, other bits and pieces, drone gear, etc., etc. So a real variety of things that you guys provide to the units. How do you go about knowing what to provide them, or is it just listening to them and just going, right, we'll do what you want?
I was just muting because I'm baking my cake here and I have to leave for 30 seconds to get it out of the oven.
No worries.
I can show it to you, but
yeah.
Just it's good. So excuse me for 30
No problem. You know, this is the first time I've ever been interrupted to get a cake out the oven, but I've got a lot of time for that. So yeah, we were there. We we experienced just as I said, what a great organization they were. And it's lovely to see these people that started as a real sort of grassroots, how can we help, beginning of the war, it's all desperate, what can we do, we need to play our part in the war because we aren't on the front line, we aren't in the armed forces, and in fact Dimco now is in the armed forces. Hey, what kind of cake is that?
It's an orange cake made by a ChatGPT recipe, because I didn't have
recipe.
I didn't have enough ingredients, but I have these oranges staying here. Dimko bought them like a month ago when he was here, and he wanted to make a fresh juice. And he never did it because he's too lazy to wash the juicer afterwards. So the oranges are just chilling
Classic.
at the window, and they are like almost dead by now. So I'm like, what can I do with them? And I asked ChatGPT, could you make me a cake recipe? I just have 2 eggs, I have some flour, I have sugar, and he's like, you need butter. I'm like, I don't have butter, please, without any butter. And it was pretty good. It turned out
nice.
Well.
That looks good. Yeah. English pronunciation lesson is recipe, just to instead of recite, recipe, just to help you out there, because I'm here to help, right? So yeah, we should talk about how you guys started off as this just trying to help, and then it's become more and more formal. You've gathered more people, and now we look at the sort of scale of what you're doing, and you are properly an established charity, but charity, as you say, is an interesting word. It evokes certain things, but you're almost like part of the provision for the Ukrainian military, if you like, and you invested in the military and getting that feedback from them as to what's needed. So you were just about to say, how you go about knowing what to give to the military or what to procure for the military.
Yes, so basically we operate based on requests. I don't know if you're interested, I can show you some insights and maybe share my screen and show how our prioritization loop looks like. Sharing it. So we operate based on the requests we get typically, but by now, so it started from just trying to cover every request, but by now we realize that not every request is worth covering, basically, because we are looking to have more impact. And our 2 impact metrics are either maximizing operations efficiency for the armed forces or saving lives. And
can I just interrupt? Sorry. The fact that you've got an impact matrix should make people that are donating to your charity really happy, because you guys are saying, right, we've got a finite amount of money. There's all of these needs. Everyone's coming to us with all these different things. So how do we go about doing a proper job of working out what is needed against what has the most impact? And you've got an impact matrix, and that sounds brilliant.
Yeah, we are trying to formalize this. We're still in process, of growing, but we at least defined it, and we'll be looking at how to measure it in numbers. So far, it's we decided, okay, we are here. We bring just technological equipment, so we would not do, medicine, for example. We did medical supplies in the past, but now we'll just skip it. Forward the request to people who do medicine, who are into it. So now we just do things that we would call technological equipment, and this is the things we are using the money we raise for. And basically, talking about use cases, we found 2 use cases of such equipment. One, and the biggest, is improving improving the efficiency of operations of the units we support. And this means, for example, a brief example could be, again, drone reconnaissance for artillery correction. So if you do not have a system set up to correct your artillery from the air, you would just be using infantry reconnaissance units just to go there and see, or you will be using some other means of correcting it, maybe some images from satellite, because we still have we have access to some imaging, but it arrives not immediately. So basically, you will just be shelling until you reach the target, and you could use 10 to 15 shells But then when you have a drone, we just were there in Donetsk Oblast, in a small village which was occupied and now deoccupied, and we were at a commandment point of one of the military units, like commandment and observance point. And every such location, they now have like 5 to 10 screens, and they are watching online streams of what's going on, basically. And they are operating CRUBs, so Polish AHS.
Yeah.
And they had the target with second launch. I was just impressed. So they just shot it once. They see the drone image. They calculate exactly like how many meters, which direction you need to correct. And then second launch is precisely exactly in the building where the Russian occupiers are sitting and hiding.
That's amazing. And the AHS Crab isn't like the newest one either. I mean, it's a fairly decent standard howitzer, self-propelled howitzer. To let the audience know, it's a Polish Korean kind of hybrid self-propelled howitzer, but it's it's not the Caesar or the Archer or something like that, but it's a pretty decent bit of kit. But to hit on its second round with correction from a drone shows how important that drone is.
Yeah, and nobody thinks of like what's the cost of a single shell. I don't know if shell is the correct thing, like thing for this howitzer, but the cost of it is like huge, and compared to the cost of one drone, like it's incomparable. So basically, the volumes of shells you'd save by just having a drone and just having a good pilot and a good person who sits there, decodes the image, calculates, like transforms it into numbers that they pass on to the crew who is operating the howitzer, is basically, it solves a lot of problems and it saves a lot of resources. And this is what we are trying to solve. And
how much does a 155mm ammunition cost now? This is in 2022, December 2022, so it might change now. But an example from a Rheinmetall contract, so it's a German manufacturer, 10,000 shells. One shell would have cost, and these are the bog standard shells, so you can get a base bleed, you can get all sorts of different shells that can do funky things, but about 3,300 euros. So that's going to be what, $3,500, I presume. So that's just one basic shell. As according to that article.
It's fun. It's exactly the price we are raising for a single night vision drone, and it typically will last longer than just one flight.
Yes. And that was interesting about Magyar released his data on how long his drones lasted as well, and I was quite staggered at how long they lasted. He was taught. So one of the drones was sort of, what was it, the thermal imagery? One of them was 86. The average was 86 flights. The other was 30 flights. And that was a lot longer than I'd seen previously in the war. So I don't know if it's because his guys do a really good job compared to others. He's like, the best of the best type thing. And it might not be the case that is the same across the front lines. It depends where you are and what the electronic warfare is like and all these other things. But I was quite impressed at that. So yeah, it's really important that the impact for you in that context is, well, if we provide a drone that is spotting for these howitzers, then that can save that unit. Instead of walking their shells in and using 10 to 15 shells, they're hitting on a second shell, then that drone is saving, tens of thousands of dollars, and that's incredibly important.
Yeah, and it's not only because of that. Basically, the issue is we do not get enough shells just to launch them, as the guys would want to. So they have to save it, and we are helping them with it.
Yeah, and just to let people know, so this has been asked a couple of times, Jen S particularly, can you keep the fundraiser open for at least another week to allow those of us without spare cash to donate, please? Yes, I mean, I doubt that we will. I know it's up at 4,200, and that won't have taken into account what we have done today, because I don't know how often the website refreshes in terms of that data, because I know there's already been lots more in since then. That was before we started the live, and it's still the same, so it probably updates once an hour or something like that. But I'm sure we'll still be going in a week's time. And even if we finish early, it depends, because we've got another campaign, and sorry that we're going to be working with other people as well, Iryna. But after this campaign, I think we're doing NAFO next, and it's going to be quite quick succession. But we will have the opportunity, if there's a gap still between NAFO, to extend raising for Jiga's pool, so that we, instead of getting 5 drones, we could go for 7 drones or whatever. So we can always add another drone on, and I'm sure Iryna won't be complaining if we want to fundraise a little bit more for them. So that's not going to be a problem. So yeah, thank you for asking that question. And just to say, I don't know if you remember Dan. So when we visited you, I know it's a long time ago now, a month is a long time, but Dan was there as well, loving this, from Bristol. So Dan lives in a city called Bristol in the UK, and he is very active with a charity called From Bristol with Love that delivers stuff out. They normally drop it in Romania, and then it goes across the border from Romania into Ukraine there. And there's a real awesome Romanian guy in Bristol who's a big fan of Ukraine and is doing all that. So Dan works a lot for them. Loving this from Bristol. Hi, Iryna. I was a quiet one when I was in Lviv with you. We sent off 40 generators this morning, Slava Ukraini. So he's involved still. So that's fantastic, Dan. And he's a total legend. So that's really good, Dan. And I believe someone in the live chat said, how can I help out in Bristol driving help? So that's great when there's connections made when we do these lives, from people living locally. Helping out any way that we can help Ukraine is, of course, beneficial for Ukraine. And of course, we're going to be selfish about it, for all of Europe, for security in general. This is Ukraine's war, is our war. In case you don't want to just see it in a purely charitable way, this is a strategic war. It's to the strategic benefit of the UK, the US, Europe, and that's a frustration when people see this only in very transactional ways, in very short-term ways. There is a transaction here, and the transaction is that they are fighting for our freedom as much as they are fighting for their freedom. Although it's obviously they're fighting for their freedom more, and obviously because they're the country that's been invaded. But this is all of our war, and that's why we are all, partly why we're all here, rooting for Ukraine and helping out so much. Anyway, given a larger context there, Iryna. So a couple of questions from the audience. Here we have Future 80B. How will the US trade war affect Ukraine? I guess you can answer that in several ways, in a larger political way. But I wonder whether a trade war will affect you, because actually you didn't get onto answering like how that you procure loads of equipment and actually you look at components. So maybe you can join these 2 points together, because you get a lot of equipment from Europe. I don't know how much equipment you get from America, but a trade war could negatively affect your fundraising and how much things cost. Is that something you thought about?
Yes, so basically, we get most of the equipment from dealers in Europe, but there is some certain types of equipment we are not able to get from Europe, or that is more expensive in Europe. And the most popular of that is night vision devices. So that's mostly from America or Canada. And don't ask me how we managed to get it, but but that's mostly from the US, because you're guys in the US make really good stuff, and it's typically way less expensive that you can get here. I have no idea how could the trade war affect this, basically, but at the same time, I think the demand for this, at least based on requests we get in our charity, is declining, because the amount of infantry operations is declining, because you would need night vision to really on every infantryman, if they work at night, if they sit in trenches, if they're about to perform assault operations. And as the war becomes more drone heavy and robot heavy, the demand grows for drones, UGVs, but not necessarily for personal items like night vision goggles. You still need them on cars. You still need them for people who are staying there and holding the line, but not as much as it used to be in the past, I would say. And in terms of other things, I think we are heavily dependent on China, basically, because we get a lot of like commercial products from them, and they are the only who managed to scale the production to have basically the products that are needed and good prices. So if they start blocking something, we will be screwed, and we will see how it goes. They basically like officially are blocking a lot of stuff, but people always find ways to get it through.
So when it comes to okay, let's go back to the components part. So you were telling me when I was out there that a lot of what you do is actually procuring and getting, finding places where you can get hold of these particular components for drones where the frontline teams are saying we need X, Y, or Z. What sort of components might these be, and how do you go about doing that, and how important is that?
Yeah, so I think the most popular component part here is, for example, video transmitters, VTXs, for FPV drones. Let's use this as an example. So an FPV drone would work on certain like frequencies on which it transfers the signal and the video. And the thing is that the frequencies people use change rapidly. Because once you start using some frequency, some amount passes, like maybe a couple of weeks or a month passes. Yeah, like this antenna and then the receiver. So basically these little things. You can also type VTX. It will be for the video transmitter. So people start using it, and you see like with everything you have here is from AliExpress mostly, and you will see some frequencies like 4.9, 5.8, 6.2, 2.5. So this means the frequency it is using, and people start putting it on their FPV drones. They start flying those drones, and then the enemy understands that this frequency is being used, because on the other side there is like a frequency detector which they will use and see what signal is being passed by and what signal is being used. So they will see, okay, people are using 4.5, let's say, so they will start to jam it. And once they have the jammers for these frequencies, it's useless. Whenever you fly out with the drone is lost. So, and the government procurement machine is very slow. So basically, let's say now we are in a setup where units use frequency, like certain frequency, let's say 4.9. And they will order FPV drones from the central logistics, from Komandovanie Sil Logistyki, which is like logistics commandment force in Ukraine, who are responsible for supplying stuff. They would like make a request for FPV drones, and thanks God, FPV drones are being procured in big volumes by our government and Ministry of Defense. But they are being procured with VTXs on that frequency. And by the time, like they're being procured centrally, then passed through the logistics force, and then delivered to the brigade level. Then on the brigade level, they will be distributed among battalions, among group ops, or whatever. So this requires a lot of time. And by the time they get to the final recipient, the pilots who are using them, the frequency is not what they need anymore. So they would have a laboratory, like a drone lab, engineering lab, and they would just sit down and replace the VTXs to get the right frequency. So we would buy VTXs, just a single detail. We do not need to buy the whole drone, just the transmitter of a frequency that is now like safe to use, and they will replace it and use the one they need. Or sometimes like they get drones with some components that are just like crap, like bad motors, for example. So the frame itself is good, the VTX is good, but the motor is not enough to fly with the load they need and to carry the load they need. So we'll just buy motors and they'll replace motors. So like 4 motors per each drone you get. And it basically enables, so if you raised like 400 new drones, it's very big. But if we use the same money and bought like VTXs, we could buy like hundreds of VTXs, like 100,000 or whatever. So we enable them to use the drones they have. They are not just, staying there at a shelf, and they are using them and they are actively working with them. And thankfully, most of the drone units we work with and currently have their own engineers. Indeed, people who know how to replace it, who know how to fix and repair stuff. So, and I see this as like way more useful thing to do than to like fundraise completely from scratch and try to build the drones. Even though there are cases sometimes when people need the drones, especially in battalions or brigades, which are not that popular and not classical. Because like classic brigades, like big mechanized brigades or infantry.
3rd Assault Brigade, some of these big ones.
Yeah. But some of the smaller ones, especially like whose specialization is not drones, they would not get enough drones from the government because they would get another stuff, which is also expensive, but they still need the drones. So we will support them too.
That's a really good explanation of how the frequencies work and why you need to be involved in getting components. So thank you for that. I was hearing recently, I can't remember who it's from, might have been Greg Terry, might have been someone else, talking about, because you can get frequency hoppers, so the more expensive drones are going to have the ability to switch from one frequency to another itself on you have multiple, I guess, antennas and whatever. But I was hearing the other day that there was now one that kind of scrambles frequencies so much. It's like frequency jamming, but it's kind of all over the place. And so therefore it can't be jammed because it's like all of these different frequencies. I can't quite explain it probably adequately enough, but is this something you've heard about?
Yeah. A lot of people use scrambling. It's a big thing, especially again in areas that are very like loaded with jamming devices, both ours and enemies. It's a good thing for you to continue flying, basically, because you will scramble and you'll still have connection between the operator and the drone. But it's better in terms of the quality of signal you receive and the quality of video in particular. And that's unfortunate because with scrambling, you would not see a very clear picture, which means you would not be able to reach the target like the way you wanted to. So I guess the success cases are way, like number of successes is lower for such scenarios.
Yeah, good stuff. Question here from Kevin Forrest, who's a great supporter of the channel. Thanks, Kevin. Good to see you, mate. Iryna, how long does it take to train a new drone operator? What is the training like? Do you know? Do you have access to that?
So from what I've been like, I don't have any, representative statistical data, but I just have my experience and based on people I talk to. It depends on the drone basically, but if you're talking about FPV drones, and if you're talking about good, input parameters, like if a person knows what is a computer, if they played games like video games, or they used PS4 or whatever, they were able, a couple of people I met were able to do it in 2 weeks, because you need like certain number of hours just training on a simulator. And then it's pretty easy to go from the simulator to real life because you have the same controller, like TX12 is the most popular, or TX14. Just like you use the same on drone and on computer, just connected to your computer, train sitting in your comfortable room at a sofa or whatever. And then you need to go to real life and train in real life. So the basic skill of, so that's the one that is being used really often. And then to go to real life, you will go there and you will need to be a part of a drone group to first see how they work. And then you will be allowed to fly on your own, but it's not it's not long. So typically it takes I would say from 2 weeks to a month, maximum 2 months. But then if you talk about bigger drones, like fixed wing drones, for example, which are way more expensive, it could take longer time because you have a lot of like theoretical training for this. Because for this, you need to know aerodynamics. For this, you need to know how it operates because you don't have the rotors. Like on every, like there is a drone, an FPV drone, it has 4 motors. So it's like, it's a whole different thing of how to balance it, how it works with the wind and stuff like that. If you have a fixed wing thing, you really need to know how to work with the wind because you have just one motor in the back. So it's more like plane pilot. I don't know.
Yeah.
So you'll have theoretical training, and then you will have training for each particular type of the fixed wing drone. And because they're more expensive, people will not just allow you to fly it. So it will typically take a couple of months to half a year, perhaps, because you will
Wow.
pass the theoretical training. Then you will need to get your official WOS, which is like Wійськово-облікова спеціальність in Ukrainian, like military specialization code. You will need to have it written in your military document that you have allowance for this particular types of devices. And yeah, you'll have to be trained for longer, but then you will be making more impact perhaps because you'll fly really like long range, and you'll be able to destroy things that are far away. So they are more expensive indeed.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's just, yeah. Sometimes I think it's just like a big glorified computer game when you're not someone just fighting in the trenches. Obviously, if you're sat away with your goggles on, and there is that element where, I mean, that's why some of the training is simulators and actually the skills of playing computer games. There is that element, and yeah, incredible. Just to remind people, when you do donate, if you do, and thank you so much for doing so, please remember to copy ATP for Dryad comments. You copy it there, it will copy it onto your clipboard, and whenever you pay, then you can slap it into the comments field or the reference field or wherever, because then that makes sure that the payment that you make is attributed to ATP Geopolitics, which is really important for us to be able to hit our fundraising goals and know that you guys have actually been donating to this project and not just generally to Jiggers Poor. A question that one of the most important questions, Tony Otterson, she says, where is Jigger?
That's a very good question. I can show you. She's sleeping because I have this I'm out of words. So every Saturday we go for a run here. We have a running club in Lviv, and I usually take her. It's an 8-kilometer run. So she's exhausted after that, and she'll sleep for the whole Saturday. But
that's not useful. There, keep that spinning top quiet. Yeah.
She's 5 years old now, but I'm keeping her sporty. I'll show you the sleepy dog.
Oh, hello, Jigger. There you go. And she's out. She's like, yeah, whatever. Not bothered. Brilliant. So there is the non-spinning top. Oh, hello. So fantastic. Thank you for that. That gives us a nice little view of Jigger. So thank you to XPenguin95 that says, was going to do a super chat about the Nerdreich and the Musk Mafia. So this is a video. I've not watched it, but lots of people are saying there's a really good video to watch out there if you search something like Nerdreich and the Musk Mafia. But I sent 20 quid to Jiggers Poor, Slava Ukraini. Absolutely. Thank you very much for doing so. Really appreciate that. Awesome stuff. Right. We have mentioned about donating and copying that link. So thank you for reminding me there, Richard RJK Spinningwood. So that's cool. Thank you. And we are now going to go to another question for Iryna, which is from John Larking, who's already said that you're an effing genius. So that's nice that you're getting some props there. Is Ukraine getting close to swarm drone attacks? I was seeing something about this written yesterday, actually. There was another mention of it. It pops up regularly. They're going to be working on it. The Russians are going to be working on it. The Chinese are working on it. Everyone will be working on this. Have you heard anything about swarm? And can you explain what swarm drone attacks are compared to lots of drones being operated individually?
Yes, so I haven't seen this in reality so far, but I was just in Kyiv for the Defense Tech Innovations Forum from Brave One, which is a cluster, technological cluster for militech startups. And before that, I was in one of the Dark Star camps. So it's another, community of Ukrainian militech startups. And I saw a couple of teams there working on it. So they're trying to develop solutions to maintain and control swarm drone attacks, and they are trying to develop solutions like platforms to not to just use drones and have, if I understand it correctly, because I'm not quite sure with English terminology, but this is like a simultaneous operation of, let's say, multiple drones, I don't know, like 5, 10 or whatever, but not controlled individually, orchestrated and controlled from a single point. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so I saw people working on solutions to develop this, but I didn't see a real working solution yet. One thing I can add here is that there are people and teams working on combining this and ground vehicles like UGVs and other means of stuff we have to work autonomously and to have a platform to control it and to integrate it all together. And the big issue with Ukrainians, I think, is that we have a lot of different ad hoc solutions because we need to be fast and cheap. But we do not have a lot of standardized stuff. So integration is a very big deal in here. Just to be able to combine everything people have and to make use of it is a very big problem, and people trying to solve it. But yeah, that's all I can say. Basically, I didn't see a working solution or a use case like that.
Yeah, I mean, this is it, and then you take it to another level with artificial intelligence as well. So, there's a difference between programming and saying, right, I'm going to program this swarm to go and do this. So I might not be all operating it. So that's kind of autonomous, but it's kind of strictly programmed. And then there's like AI that will take control of target acquisition and then this and that. And then you have questions about whether there needs to be a human to say yes or no before AI decides to, because the AI might go, there's a target, we're all going to go and hit it. And it turns out it's a bus full of children, right? And so, do you need a human to go yes or no? Or is indeed AI better than a human? There's this idea all the time that humans are always going to be somehow more knowledgeable or better at deciding their AI, and of course that's open to debate as well, because we are prone to making huge amounts of mistakes. So loads of debate around that, and it's really interesting. So before I got into the whole Ukraine war thing, I was a philosopher of religion, right? And all my books I've written have been on whether or not God exists, which is, that's a conversation for another day. But I remember writing articles on how driverless cars are having to consider morality, and then so what morality do you plug into them? So if you have a car that is autonomously driving, and say it's part of, I mean, we're going into the future somewhat here, but if it's part of a smart city, then it's like has an idea of what's all around it. And if it's like, right, we're going to crash, but I've got a choice of crashing into this child here or this 80-year-old granny over there, it's like, well, what do I do? I'm going to kill one of them. So which one do I kill? So that depends on how you morally program it, right? And so anyway, there's lots of interesting debates you can have about AI and technology in general, and then morality, and actually, what is our prevailing moral value system, and how would we program a vehicle to deal with that? Well, we're making arguments about, well, a child has got its life all ahead of it, and blah blah blah, and someone who's 80 has been and had their life, and blah blah blah, and is now part of the the welfare system that's going to be costing society, so we should kill the granny rather than the child. It's like, oh, that's these really like problematic, well, not problematic, but intricate moral questions. But these are the sorts of things that one needs to discuss. This is why philosophy can be important, guys. Philosophy's cool because actually there is applied philosophy in terms of AI and ethics and whatnot. Anyway, that's a whole, sorry, I just thought I'd take that opportunity to go off on one. Now, another interesting question here for Iryna. I would ask whether controllers are for the FPVs or any kind of controller, I guess, for drones are outsourced from outside, or are they domestically produced in Ukraine? And indeed, that question can apply to all the components and drones and tech that you deal with.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Most of them that are being used are not outsourced, basically bought from China. So they are produced in China and used here because they have two advantages. One, you can buy freaking a lot of them. Two, they are freaking cheap. And this is basically it. But of course, people in Ukraine are trying to develop their own solutions, not only for controllers, but for different parts of the drones, just as you mentioned, for like simple things made from plastics, like the, oh my god, propellers, like from propellers to more sophisticated things like FPV cameras, even like thermal cameras, night vision cameras for FPVs, and trying to make that cheap. And here again, I'm getting back to the defense tech cluster and all of the teams that are in there. So there are really, really like a lot of different small teams and a lot of great engineers working on this. I know at least about a couple of solutions that are being brought to production and that are scaling their manufacture line now. For example, with cameras. And this is typically what people, so people who do this are typically people who have background in hardware and in tech. People who did some, tech startups before, but they completely switched to to this defense tech thing. If you heard about PadCube, for example, it's a pad camera. I know it was kind of popular. I know whoever heard about it, yeah, drop a comment. So it's a pad camera. It's a Ukrainian. So the guy who developed it is from Ukraine, and now he develops thermal cameras and other types of cameras for FPV drones, and he develops last mile AI systems. So basically, a lot of engineers understand the issue, and they're trying to get this domestically produced. But
Did you say pad cube, as in PAD cube?
Pet, not like an animal pet.
Sorry, pat.
Yeah. You can Google that.
Oh, pet cube. Right. Smarter. Right. Is this what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Pet cube. Right. Okay. Cool. Right. Nice. So yeah, I mean, there's so much innovation in Ukraine, and that's needed as much now as, well, more now than ever. One of the things that, I mean, we can talk about security in terms of energy security. So countries are now saying, right, we don't want to be dependent on any other country for our energy. So if we're lucky enough to produce our own energy, if we have our own hydrocarbons, then that's great. But otherwise, we're going to have to think in terms of nuclear. But then we are dependent on uranium. So then it's about maybe renewables is a good way to at least get some of your energy independence. Well, actually, it's the same for tech as well. So tech security, like microchips, are largely built in China, Taiwan. And so this is where the US has been going, well, we want to protect Taiwan because of largely because of the microchip industry there that we're so dependent on. And then the US is like, well, sod it, we need to just build our own microchips, which is what the Chips and Science Act of Joe Biden was all about, or partly about, which is making sure that they are secure in their own country and building their own stuff. And actually, Ukraine has been looking at building their own microchips. Problem is, it takes a heck of a lot of investment and quite a lot of time. But I believe that there is some move to make microchips in Ukraine, and that would be super useful given how many microchips you guys are going to be using in pretty much bloody everything.
Yes. And even now, like, so was we recently had this fundraiser for Ukrainian-made drones, Linza drones, which are so this is a team that is trying to build a replacement for Mavic, because we are like heavily dependent on DJI, and it's hard to imagine what happens if they cut supplies, and people are trying to get around. And I was asking them when we met in Kyiv, what is the kind of the percentage of stuff you get from China in terms of components still, and what is replaceable and what is such that you could not replace because it's like heavily dependent on a technology that they have and they produce. And they're like, our strategy. So they didn't tell me the exact, percentage of what is the percentage of their drone that is made fully like in Ukraine compared to or Europe or whatever, but just not China. But they said they are still like they still rely on Chinese components. Again, in terms of microchips, it's very heavy, and they are trying to balance between the price of their product and the amount of stuff they get from China, because again, the very big advantage is price in terms of like components you're getting. But their long-term goal is to like get out of there, and they are the company building like the final product. So they kind of try to establish connections with people who are starting to build lower parts of this like manufacture line. So are starting to build controllers, chips, propellers, and so on and so forth. So they establish these partnerships, and they were able to replace some of the components with Ukrainian-made components, but not all of them. And this is their ultimate goal. And they don't know how long it will take, basically.
Yeah, it's so important. I'm in love with your sleepy dog. What an amazing dog. Yes, well, there you go. Jigga is a bit of a start. Just to remind people that how to actually donate. So I will show you how to donate again. If you go to Jigga's board to the link provided and you go down and press donate anywhere on here, it will take you down to here, and you have to definitely 100% make sure that you press copy ATP for triad comment. So copy that, that's now in your clipboard. And whenever you press on this, you will then get an option somewhere to put that in. You paste in whatever you have copied into the reference or the comment box, and it should apply it to this campaign. Now, what I will ask Iryna, and I don't know if this is possible, but we have had during this video, donated but didn't know anything about copying the ATP thingy. Oh well. I don't. Is there any way of looking to see what's been donated while we've been live and applying that to our pot here, because it's likely to come from? I know you might have regulars who you will know, but if you've got like a flurry of donations that have not put that in, can that be applied to our pot?
Yes, so from what I see now, most of the donation that came from our website include ATP. And then from PayPal donations, I definitely saw some that do not have the comment that arrived just while we were talking. And there is a way to include them. I'll just like go there after the stream. I have the timestamps, so I can take the donation IDs and include them. That's no problem, and we'll definitely do it.
Oh, that's really kind of you, Iryna, because yeah, it'll be nice if they are reflected in what the team is trying to do here. So that's fantastic. There's just been an update on the website as well. Actually, that's your website. It's now gone up to 4,501, so it's just whacked in another $300. But I don't know how quickly that is refreshing and updating.
Yeah, I'm trying to get access to this chart basically to change the refresh rate, but I don't have it because my colleague did it. So now I even don't have access to the chart, and she's not with her computer.
That's no drama. It's no drama. We understand that there will be an awful lot more being added to that. Well, look, is there anything else you think we haven't touched upon that is important to discuss with regard to the project and what you guys do?
Yeah, there is one big thing actually, and I just realized we didn't mention it. The thing is that this project is the largest project we had so far.
All right.
And when we were thinking of how do we achieve this, we thought of a challenge to show how united we are. And the challenge is that half of the amount is being raised by Ukrainians in Ukraine, and another half is being raised by our foreign supporters. So we just told, okay, here are the 7 units we need to support with Mavics. if you raise for 5 Mavics, we give you 10 Mavics. And they are thinking like with their communities, their families, friends.
Sorry, can I? Sorry, just to make sure I understand you on that. So, are you saying that to the units? So the units then fundraise half, and you match that.
Yeah, basically, like we help them, but we are talking to like press officers from the units, and each of them like they have their own ways. Some people are planning to go on Ukrainian TV, and Ukrainian TV is like Ukrainians watching this, and they have the Monobank QR code, and they would support them. Some of them have big social networks, like some of the brigades, there are bigger, like 93rd, they'll be announcing it on their social networks, or Rarok, which is like a pretty big thing. They have their own, brand. So they are trying to use their resources, and we are using our Ukrainian friends, friendly groups who are volunteering. So we are covering this 150K in Ukraine and another half from abroad, and that's basically
cool.
Yeah, a thing to show that many people say that Ukrainians are just, begging. We are tired of giving money to Ukraine, and we do not trust them and stuff like that. And every day I see like a lot of my Ukrainian friends still doing this, still fundraising, even like people who are serving in the army, donating for their particular unit. So we're literally putting our best, and we wanted to highlight that and show that. And
that's really important.
Yeah.
I was just going to say as well that right from the beginning of the war, I mean, if you know what's gone on in Ukraine, it's very evident that Ukrainians themselves have donated an absolute ton out of their own pocket. Of course they have. And I'm sure, time will tell. I'm sure facts and figures will come out as the war hopefully becomes a distant memory, that, as people analyze the war, they'll understand how much the Ukrainians themselves dug into their own pockets to support the war effort. This is the crowd-funded war for sure. Yes, that's happened in World War II. There's elements of crowdfunding, and it's not a new thing. But now, with the age of the internet, we are able to harness social media and people from around the world to moral causes that we feel are important, and that has led to situations like this. So that's fantastic. So thank you for that. Now I wanted to just, I guess, finish off the chat with you, Iryna, by it's difficult not to mention what's been going on in the last week, which has been geopolitically insane. And it looks like, from my point of view, but I don't want to put words in your mouth, but from my point of view, it looks like the US under Donald Trump. So when I say the US, I mean the Trump administration, because I know there are many Americans who feel very, very differently. But the Trump administration seems to have switched sides. That's how I see it. And everything that's being said at the moment leads me to believe that's exactly what it looks like, at least functionally. Even if they might say otherwise, functionally, they have switched sides. They're not putting any pressure on the Russians, and all the pressure is on the Ukrainians. So that's my point of view. What's your point of view, and what can you give me a sense of what Ukrainians that people that you work with, people that you meet on the street, people that you see in the shop, if it's being a conversation that you're overhearing, what do you get a sense of how this is going down?
So what I can say is that over the last week, I saw more memes than I saw over the last months or something. So Ukrainians would typically make fun of it and continue doing what they are doing, basically. So that's our attitude. But of course, it's a serious deal. And everybody tries to speak to the connections they have, like in the US, and we try to reach out to people who then write to their congressman, or to reach out to people to talk who are of a different view than the administration, and to get the stuff moving like that. But in general, like for the first couple of days, and the day before yesterday, I guess, when Trump released this crazy tweet about moderately successful comedian Zelensky stuff, people were just like sad for a moment, but then they're like, we do not rely on anyone except ourselves. Everybody realizes that even if like European support increases, most of the stuff we get that is financed by Europe is still produced in the US. So like Europe is not capable of like producing the stuff at the scale we need. So it will be developing, but it won't develop quickly. So you'll still need the US to produce it, but at the same time, I think they will be happy to produce it because the money goes into their economy. So I don't expect it to develop to that extent that every single step. So except from stopping the financing, they will stop, selling stuff to us and then using somebody else's money to pay for it and not Americans' money. But in general, my hope somewhere in the background, which I don't believe in, but I have this kind of small piece of hope that this is some kind of a 3D, 5D chess playing in terms of negotiations. And
I honestly don't think he's capable of playing that. But anyway, yeah, carry on.
Yeah, so perhaps, like, of course, as a good like negotiator, you would start somewhere very far from what you want to achieve. But yeah, I don't think we will be ready to agree. But I don't know like all the information that is available out there, like both for Zelensky, for Trump. So that's just my point of view.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting when you say, will you start a negotiation far away from where you want to be? But the US appears to be starting a negotiation with what Putin wants. And, like, yeah, I hope they come over here. But normally you start like wanting the most for Ukraine, right? But then there's nothing that's been about getting stuff off
Yeah.
Russia. It's all been about getting stuff off Ukraine. And it just looks like extortion. And like 1 minute they're your ally and now they're trying to do you over as far as the Trump administration goes. And the sort of people involved in some of these negotiations, I don't particularly trust at all. And then you've got, Keith Kellogg that's come over to Kiev that I think is going to effectively be sidelined. I don't think it even matters what he thinks, because I think the decisions, unfortunately, are going to be made further up the chain of command. But yeah, so I mean, I was wondering whether people on the front line will get depressed about this, whether this is the right kick in the shins for Ukrainian soldiers. I did see a BBC news piece the other night that said they were interviewing someone on the front line who was a drone. Actually, he was a drone workshop guy in a bunker, and he's like, I don't have time to watch the news.
Yeah.
I don't care. I do what I'm doing here. They'll do what they do here. And I can't listen to that, so I'm getting on with this. And I just hope that that's the view of most of the soldiers.
Yes, totally can confirm. Every time we go out there and speak to them, they just basically, it's not that they are not interested. Basically, they do not have time for this. And if some of the reporters, like foreign reporters, would ask me, could your like military connections give a comment of some of the recent political developments? I'm like, well, I'm not sure, because they'll have to invest time analyzing what happened. And even like once I tried, I remember I got the question after Trump's election. I got a question from one of the reporters, I guess from Business Insider, and they wanted me to go and record like audio clips of what the Ukrainian soldiers think of the election and how it turned out in the states, which states voted for whom. And I was asking them, and people were like, what happened? Like, could you please explain me in 5 to 10 minutes? Because I'm not really following this at all, so I cannot give any comment. Sorry for that, but yeah, they have work to do, and that's what they're doing. I don't know if it's good or bad. Probably good, because they're focusing on the work that needs to be done. They have lifting.
Yeah. Well, I just really, really hope that. I mean, I was just reading there that Zelensky was saying and I understand this because it's unfortunately the realpolitik of this. The reality of the situation is, Washington Post reports to save his country, Zelensky hopes to salvage his relationship with Trump after it blew up very publicly this week. Quote, regardless of the circumstances, we are not in a position to quarrel with Trump. We need to be wiser, said Alexander Merechko, chairman of the Ukrainian Parliamentary Committee on Foreign Policy. We need to earn Trump's trust and respect. And this is extremely difficult now, but not impossible. I mean, I'd phrase that slightly differently. I think you have earned his respect. You should have earned his respect, but Trump doesn't know anything about what's going on. I was just reading, I mean, for those who have watched my videos already today, although I haven't done my hits and losses, I've recorded that, but I'll release that after this video. But and this is kind of the last thing I'll say about Trump, is that he is incredibly ignorant of what's going on in Ukraine. Like, he only found out, well, he admitted yesterday that he found out the day before that Russia had been deporting Ukrainian children, right? He's only just found that out. And that's why, that's freaking why Putin has an arrest warrant on his head from the International Criminal Court. That's why he's a war criminal, because he's been deporting children. Like, everyone knows it, or they should have known this, especially if you're the president of the United States and you are forcing negotiations between two countries, and not including Ukraine. That's two countries, the US and Russia, about the war in Ukraine. And you don't know why Putin has an arrest warrant on his head. And you don't know that Russia has been deporting children from Ukraine since the beginning of the war. You're an idiot. So when you're talking about earning Trump's respect, Trump needs to earn our respect, and he's just not doing it. And I really fear for Ukraine that the country that is leading Ukraine's negotiations for its future is A, not including Ukraine, and B, that leader doesn't seem to know what the hell he's talking about. And I just want to cry, and then I don't cry. I get angry, and then when I get angry, I get righteous, and when I get righteous, we start a campaign to raise money for drones through DZYGA'S Poor. So that's how I'm going to channel my anger. Anyway, sorry about that, Iryna. You're probably bored of listening to me bang on, but there you go.
I have one more comment actually regarding Trump's statement. So one of the things that really annoyed me was he claiming our president is illegitimate, and he claiming we need elections, and Zelensky does not allow it. We are not like we are not an autocracy. We are not even a presidential, country. We are like first parliament, then president. So parliament completely controls it, and there is a constitution, and there is and it tells you like what are the rules we are following here, and it tells you that if we have a war in our country, it's stupid to make elections, and it would never be possible to make fair elections. It will never be possible to have elections and to manage this war at the same time, because election will start like political campaigns, will start preparation campaigns for these elections. And what we need now is like total unity of our crowd. And I think like the president is completely legitimate. It was selected by people. I personally did not vote for him, but now I'm proud that we have him, and I'm afraid to think like what could have happened if we had somebody else and not Zelensky, not this simple guy from Kryvyi Rih, who is like showing his, face and showing his, rules. I don't know, the principles he lives by to the world, and I'm really happy to have him. And there are no talks about elections like among like ordinary people in Ukraine. Everybody is okay with the president we have. Everybody realizes that like a lot of people are abroad, and as a big part of people are fighting, they cannot go and vote. So like who will be voting if we have elections? It's not. It's basically not possible.
Constitutionally, under law, you're under martial law. So constitutionally, you can't have elections. And both opposition leaders have said, and that includes Poroshenko, has said we don't want elections now, and Zelensky's fine with being the leader now. And if the opposition politicians are saying that, Parliament's saying that, and the people are saying that, then You know,
Trump
and as you say,
different.
it's a representative democracy, and so yeah, it's just really frustrating. I did a whole video on this about a year ago, I think it was, maybe a little bit more, about the whole argument about whether you should have elections under war or not. And it's worth looking back in history at the UK that we didn't have elections for 9-10 years around the Second World War, and no one calls Churchill a dictator. Like, no one said that. So, and he also banned opposition political parties, and I think some media sources who were like pro-Nazi. He did that as well, because you don't want the enemy of your state causing issue in your state while you're at war with those enemies. And anyway, we weren't even invaded. You know, we were fighting on the continent. So yeah, anyway, 100% agree. 100% agree. Just a few thanks before we sort of finish up talking, Iryna. And just there's a question as well, JP. Is there a way to get a physical donation for people like my parents who do not use the internet? My answer to that would be get them to donate to you, and then you do it on the internet. I think any other way, I don't want to speak for Iryna, but I think in this day and age, you know, it's electronic payments are the only way of getting donations to something like this. But I don't know. I can't speak for you, Iryna.
Yeah, we had such requests from people from Germany, I guess, and they were able to go to their bank and actually donate using IBAN code, like just the bank, like wire transfer. We have this Swift payments; they work pretty well. So we have our payment requisites on our website. You could recommend them doing this, but again, I'm not sure if this will work. So the best way, just as Jonathan mentioned, would be to donate to you, and then you donate electronically. That's what I typically do. Sometimes we have events or people here donating in cash. It's very hard to count cash. I'm not dealing with it because we have automated systems for everything. So I'll just take, typically it's not like large amounts of money. I'll just take my money, donate it electronically, and then get the cash, because I need everything accounted and cash is a mess. So better do it electronically.
Yeah, there's a question: how much do each class of drone use cost? I mean, the ones that we're fundraising for are about €3,500. Is it euro? No, dollars. And that is for the thermal imaging Mavic 3T drone, if I'm correct in saying. But of course, different drones are going to have different costs. And, you know, when you're talking about changing frequencies and stuff like that, then you have added costs as well.
Yeah. For like FPV kamikaze drone, which is like a one-time use drone, it would be like $300, $350, $400, depending on size. So it's pretty cheap. And for Mavics, it also depends if it has a night vision camera or no. For the ones we are raising, just as Jonathan mentioned, but there are cheaper ones, which are like $1,500, which will be used during the day or for dropping, like bomb dropping. So
yeah, and the reason why the drones that we're raising for are more expensive is because they need them. They need them, and they are thermal drones. You know, and these give a certain capability that you have to pay for. You know, the better the drone, the more it's going to cost, and it's that simple. And so we could be fundraising for, you know, 5 times as many FPV drones, but you know, this campaign is for thermal drones to help with reconnaissance and to help for, you know, and that can be utilized in so many different contexts in terms of just intelligence gathering, target acquisition, all sorts of different things that these Mavic drones will be used for by these different units up and down the front line. And the details: 7 different units, or 7 different I guess brigades, or I don't know how big the units are being assisted here in this whole project, and yeah, we're all chipping in to help these drones get to the people that need them most.
Yeah. For some of them we are helping on brigade level, and for some of them we are helping on battalion, and for some of them on a company level, and depends like with whom we are in contact. But all of them belong to some brigade.
Yeah. Absolutely. Just going to go through some thanks, Iryna. The Weasel, thank you very much for helping to keep the lights on here at the channel. That's very kind. Stephen Bendel, we must all do more stand up against MAGA and Putin. It's amazing how MAGA is now put in the same sentence as Putin. Thanks to M. De Vilden. That's really generous, and I've already put that across to Iryna and Jiggers Poor. Thanks to Da Vinci, and I answered that question earlier. All the payment methods are on there: Swift, PayPal, Monobank, just general credit card or card payments. Kevin Force, thanks for the ATP Geopolitics memberships. That's very kind of you, as it is from Richard Bennett as well. Super generous. Dan Smith in Bristol, one of the team that got the trucks out to Lviv, and that enabled us to go and visit Iryna, actually in one of the trucks we delivered. And those trucks that we delivered now all gone to the front line. They've all been done up and they're all on the front line. So those 3 trucks that we took out there have gone, which is fantastic. Johnny Nebregard, thank you very much. Hello, community. Hello. John Larkin said, here's 20 quid for the genius. That's you. So I'll shoot you across another 20 quid. So thank you very much, John Larkin. That's really kind of you, my good man. Future ATOB or ATOB or something. Thank you for your Danish love there. Slava Ukraini, absolutely. Now, Rick from the Netherlands says, the biblical definition of the fool in Proverbs, a fool is someone who rejects wisdom, mocks righteousness, and causes disorder. Which mega, or is it MAGA, religious person does this describe? Well, let's have a debate about that, where there are, goodness me, there are so many fools around that I don't know who I'd give it. So we had, right, I'm going to leave you with this. We had on a back channel, on a chat, it was a chat, the people that went to Lviv, right? So we got our WhatsApp group, and someone put a poll on yesterday. If you had a suicide vest that had to go off, right, would you get into a car with Putin, Elon Musk, or Donald Trump? And I was like, oh my goodness. I think it wouldn't be Trump, because if Trump dies, then Vance will take over. So actually, that won't make any difference. But Musk potentially has more disinformation threat over time. And I don't know if I'd do Musk before Putin. Do you know what I'm like? Oh my goodness. So anyway, that's a poll for everyone to think about. Any thoughts on that one, Iryna?
Well, it's hard. I don't know. I don't know. It's really hard. Maybe if I'm with them, I can do something to them while on that west. So probably just kill all of them.
Yeah, I'll be like operating some FPV drones while blowing myself up. I've done them all. Unfortunately, that's changing the thought experiment, so you can't do that. But nevertheless, I'll leave you with that one, Iryna. Without Starlink, proper drones for eyes in the sky become increasingly important. One thing I did want to talk to you about actually is, because I know, because I was with you when you were talking about Starlink there, because I know you procure Starlink as well for the units. If Starlink is turned off, is Ukraine done for, or are there other options? I've heard that there are other options that Ukraine is using in some places on the front line, particularly in Kursk, where they can't use Starlink. Apparently, they are using alternatives up there. Any thoughts on Starlink being turned off?
Yeah, so I'll start with the fact that basically, like, Starlink is used massively, but of course we are not like that stupid to have it as the only means of communication. So everybody has reserved channels. Of course, they have like radio communication, all already frontline. But the main problem with this is, one, distance, and two, security. Because like Starlink with satellite connection and encrypted connection is way more secure than just the radios, which you can like overhear. And they have like another type of like reserve connectivity is just classical internet. So a lot of people would just use internet cables they have from cities which are Ukrainian, well, where they have again this fiber optics. So they would like put this to their commandment points, and then there are antennas you could use. It's like if you have wire internet connected to your point somewhere, there are big repeater antennas which you could put in one place, and then it goes all over to another place in, like, let's say like 50 kilometers. You install that antenna, it receives the signal, and then you connect it to a router, and you have Wi-Fi in that place. The thing is, it's very less mobile, but a lot of the units use it. And another thing is, antennas are pretty freaking big. So it's small, but still you can use it, you can install it. It will be destroyed because it's static. It will be destroyed in a couple of days, weeks, or whatever, but still it's another like good thing to have. And another thing is like satellite internet. We have solutions in Ukraine for satellite internet. That's what you mentioned about Kursk. We're using European satellites. It's not a commercial solution, so it's not like Starlink, but I think we'll find ways to scale it and to use it massively. So if the Starlink is turned off, indeed, for a couple of weeks or months, there will be a little mess. So we will not, everything will not fail. The battle will continue. People will keep doing their work. It will be harder to do their work. They will have to maybe do less work in some areas because they won't be able to, like 5 of the crews will not be able to operate, maybe like 1 of 5 or 2 of 5 who will have reserve connectivity. So it will probably be harder, but I am sure everything will not kind of fail. Just because we always.
Yeah, and it's some people were talking about different Swedish options there. Satcube, Swedish Satcube is in Ukraine, started to trickle in after Musk geofenced Starlink after Crimea, and there's also Sky DLS is one of the Swedish equivalent of Starlink 2. I don't know enough about those, but apparently, according to those two, they're out and about. So that's good stuff. Really appreciate everybody's support, and I look forward to reporting how much money we have raised for this project. Thank you so much to Iryna, who has been here, being a wonderful guest and just a wonderful spokesperson for the Ukrainians and for DZYGA'S as well, obviously, as it's her puppy, so to speak, quite literally. Although the puppy's disappeared. It's just camera shy. Literally, just moved down the sofa. Just like, I don't like being famous.
We make photographs, photo reports with her, and she's like, "Well, it's Saturday. Please give me some rest."
Brilliant. Well, look, I really appreciate you coming on, Iryna, and you're always welcome, and Dimko and anyone from your organization. DZYGA'S are awesome, and they are doing wonderful stuff, and I'm really glad to be partnering here at ATP Geopolitics. And if anyone donates over $1,000, I know that's an awful lot. If you do have the wherewithal to be able to do that, then you'll get an engraved name, if you want, on the drone, alongside hopefully our logo or something, the ATP Geopolitics one. So that's really, really cool. Thank you, Iryna. And just also, guys, don't forget to copy the comment on the website. I know Iryna's going to hopefully change what has been donated during this live, but make sure you press copy ATP for Triad there before you put it into there. I wonder if that can be even more brightly, like flashing or something. I don't know if your website gurus are like above here or everywhere. But copy ATP, put it in the comments, like a really clear command for everyone to do that, because I think it might be missed. But I don't know. I'll suggest that on the back channel.
Yes. And one more thing, actually. So your goal is now, it's covering 5 drones, I guess. Yep. So we have units to whom we are delivering like 10 drones. So they are raising for 5, and you can match for 5 for one particular unit. And maybe we can raffle something among all of your like donations from that unit. So,
yeah, that'd be brilliant. I don't know how to do that, and if you can help me with that, then yeah, I have no problems with that. Can I just tell a story that involves you before we leave? So some of my viewers will know this, but you took us around your garage, which has loads of like, it's got like a Russian missile, it's got loads of like shells and helmets and body armor and broken drones, as in Russian drones, all the stuff that units are giving you, saying, "Hey, do you want this bit of Russian stuff?" And you're like, "Yeah," and it's all in your garage. And a couple of us, you kindly gave us a canister, an empty canister. This is actually a NATO one. It's not a Russian one. A NATO canister, which myself, Jonathan Fink, and JR took one of those, and I've got ideas about raffling them, but I just don't know how to do that. But we were on the train crossing the border into Poland, and we had 3 of those boxes. I had one that was hidden in my suitcase, but they found one of them, which I think was Jonathan Fink's, and then they found there was also 2 like shells, like I don't know, Gepard shell or something that JR had, and they found them, and then they were like not happy with them, and they'd already checked my bags, and they'd missed my one. I was like, well, I'm all right. So they found Fink and then JR's shells, and because Jonathan Fink can speak Russian and none of us can speak Ukrainian Russian, Jonathan Fink was like responsible for that, and he was like, "Oh, I'll talk to them about this." And then eventually they're like, "We've got a problem. We think we're gonna have to speak to our boss, right?" So he had to take his bags and his jacket and get off the train, right, at the Polish border. And then after half an hour, we're waiting for him to come back. Then the train left, so we left Jonathan Fink in Ukraine at this border point, being interrogated by the border police, by the border patrol and the police. Meanwhile, we then went to Shemshel and then on to Krakow. And like 5 hours later, eventually, because they told him as soon as he got off the train, they said, "By the way, you're not getting back on that train." And then they interrogated him, and it was like, "No, it's just, you know, we're going to raffle them, and it's you know, it's to help you guys out." And they're like, "Yeah, but then they were like, but the Polish don't like this. The Polish border guards don't." So they're putting it all on the Poles. Meanwhile, I took my bag with that in it, put it on the X-ray machine. It went through, went beep. Polish guy looked at it, didn't give a shit, right? And then they all went. And meanwhile, Jonathan Fink's being interrogated. He's probably naked in a shower somewhere, being interrogated, being told that the Polish don't like this, and they didn't care. And anyway, wow. 5 hours later, Jonathan Fink comes without that canister and without those shells, and you know, he was our fall guy because it wasn't all his stuff, but it was quite a funny story. And eventually he got back to us after missing different trains, and then I was on the phone to him, and he was at Shemshel or somewhere waiting for the train. And as I was speaking to him, and Jonathan Fink, he's a nice guy, but he can swear, and he was like, "F the F, the train is leaving, it's the other end of the platform and it's going in the other direction." And then he was like, "That's another hour and a half that he's going to be late." Anyway, we're all loving it. So that was the story of Jonathan Fink getting interrogated because he had one of those canisters. And yeah, so thank you for that. You enabled us to have a great story.
Yeah, but you have your rescue, so
I'm all right, Jack. You know, I'm fine. I don't care if Jonathan Fink gets.
You don't speak Russian? That's probably useful.
Yeah, I don't speak Russian or Ukrainian, and as a result, I haven't been probed by the guards at the border like Jonathan Fink probably has. But there you go.
We used to send some of the, but just smaller ones, just via post, and it worked pretty well. We just put a description. This is a candlestick. This is a vase for flowers. This is an artwork. It's fine.
Nice.
Know how to sell it.
Yeah, no problems at the Polish border with them. Absolutely. Right, thank you to Reb Tyree. Really appreciate that. 5 ATP Geopolitics memberships. Thank you. Could Musk go one step further and abuse Starlink to become an informant for Putin? I don't know what the extent of Musk and Trump being agents of the Kremlin. It beggars belief what they're doing. Everything seems to be for Russia and not for Ukraine. And I'm struggling to see why they're doing that. And the only plausible explanation is that they are compromised. Like, people are saying that he's Krasnov, Donald Trump, and that he was compromised in 1987. And it's been like that ever since. And actually, when you start looking at the data, it does look like that's a plausible explanation. But there you go. What do I know? Iryna, last words for the wonderful team here.
So my last words will be thank you very much for watching. Thank you for all your questions and comments. I am absolutely happy there is a community of you guys who are mostly not in Ukraine, who still care as we are 3 years into this full-scale invasion. It's actually like a big hidden thing for me. I don't know, like a big, I cannot understand it to the full and completely, because you are so far away and you are so involved, and I'm touched by this every time. I will be really happy to see you all over here. So we are really welcome to inviting any Ukraine supporters to Lviv to have some coffee, have some tour around, because Ukraine is a wonderful country and you will love it if you're here. And my last piece will be, I am going to make this raffle thing possible. So get in contact with the unit, ask what are the nice items they have, and such ones that will go through the border easily, probably. And then we will get in contact with Jonathan and we will let you know. But I think we will make it backward compatible. So all of the donations that are in this fundraiser currently and all that will come later will be counted. And depending on what we will have, we will see what is the amount that needs to be donated to participate. And I think Jonathan will let you know, or maybe we will meet once again. And this is technically possible because we have all the records, so we can handle that. You don't have to know how to do it.
Oh, that's amazing. That's brilliant. So it's a case of whether $10 is one ticket or $50 is one ticket, that kind of thing. And then we can work out. Yeah. That would be absolutely brilliant. I love it. Thank you. Just keep in contact with what the unit suggests. That'd be marvelous. I really appreciate that. And good on Nova Posture, I'm sure will help us out there. Yes. They are legends. I've just heard that Nova Posture has finally pulled out Pokrovsk. That just goes to show how amazing Nova Posture are at getting like postage to places that are pretty horrific. Well, look, thank you, Iryna. I really can't thank you enough for your time here today and for everything you're doing for your soldiers on the front line. Not that it's for me to thank you, but you know, whatever, I just have. I really appreciate this time we've had. And let's do it again sometime, and give my very kindest regards to Dimko as well, who is awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll let him know.
Cool. Okay, well, that's the end of the live stream. I'm going to let Iryna go. Stay on the line, Iryna, for a second. But thank you very much to everyone in the team and all those who have donated. You know who you are. You're all amazing. And please click on that link. Remember to copy that ATP for Triad comments to put it in whatever payment method you choose. The link is in the description below, and follow. Just press the donate button and copy that comment. In the meantime, everybody, take care, and Slava Ukraini.
Heroям slava.